Hey everybody, welcome to another episode with one of our beautiful authors from the Born to Rise book project. I am here with Michelle Lemoi. She's become a dear friend after working together on a couple different things, but she's got a great story, a very unique work life, and so I would love for you to meet her. So Michelle, welcome to the Born to Rise book project interview. How you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me here, Kim. And yes, I always say when I talk about you, I love everything that you do, and I tell people that don't know of you, the importance of the work that you're doing. So the fact that I'm a part of this project is just super exciting because women sharing their stories and being their authentic selves is just it's life-changing and transformational.
Absolutely. So I'm glad you're on board too, because I do think you have a really cool. I love that you're in the work that you're in, and not that you're all about your work. But tell us a little bit about yourself. I would love for the audience to know more about you.
Sure, thank you. My name is Michelle Lemoy. I have been in the construction industry for 30 years. Kind of haphazardly fell into it at 19 years of age, in working for a local furniture store. The owners were acting as their own GC, and I was the right-hand person, buying out all the subcontractors, attending all the meetings. And I really had no idea what to do, how to do it. And I was very fortunate in my early years of my career to have these male champions that saw how eager I was to learn, really liked working with me because I was very organized, and my integrity was really what I said I was going to do, I delivered upon. And so there was a trust factor there. But I really was just one female in a sea of men. I mean, I can count really on one hand the number of women over the course of the first 10 years that I worked with. And so it was really a great experience, and I got the bug, and then I ended up going into the steel industry, and that's really kind of where I hung out for the next 15 to 20 years. I had my own business, Lemoi Erectors, from 2009 to 2016, and it was really probably the best experience I've ever had. I at one point, grew the company from 250,000 to 8 million. Had almost 100 ironworkers, union ironworkers on my payroll. Had about 10 people in my office staff, and then I had a contract that did not sit well with me. We talk about being authentic. This contract really gave me a lot of heartburn. I didn't want to sign it. I needed the work, got to feed the beast and the machine to have all these people working for you. And I thought, I'm going to do everything I can to mitigate the exposure. And unfortunately, that didn't work out well for me. And I used to have this saying, go big or go home. And I tell people I went home, and it was devastating. It took me like 2 years before I could talk about it without bursting into tears. And then I had to find a new job, right? I've for raising my son, and it was a great way to be there for him when he was growing up and his asthma. um I was my own boss, but I also missed out a little bit on some of his growing up because I was working a lot of hours, and the pressure was on as a female owned business. 100%, I didn't have anybody helping me but my staff that I hired. And so when that all came to a close, I had to regroup, and I went to work for somebody else, and I ran their company for a while, almost 5 years, the division of their company. And then I left there last year, and thought, okay, now what am I going to do? And I wanted to help more women in construction, because as the time is going on, there's more and more women showing up, not as many in the trades, but more in, project management positions like I have been in. And and so how could I support those women? And through my own personal journey of, sort of moving from, surviving in my environment to thriving, how can I help other women personally and professionally, show up as the best version of themselves? And so I created a group called Elevate Women in Construction, and did that for the last year. And then sort of pressed pause on it at the beginning of this summer because I was then going on another transformational, spiritual, and emotional mental health journey. And now I'm in the process of sort of teaching some classes and doing some speaking events, but really trying to figure out and formulate what the next steps of that business are while I have a full-time job and I'm consulting for a high-end residential builder. So, and writing books and all these fun things.
Yeah.
So, lots going on.
Well, as most of us are, you're multi-layered, right?
Mhm.
You've had some really high-powered, high touch with a lot of different people kind of jobs to working in smaller groups and standing on a stage by yourself and also raising a son by yourself. And it's so funny how, I think women do that really well to a point, right? We can get burned out, we can do all the things. And I think generationally, maybe that's shifting, I don't know, but like more men are definitely stepping up. And I loved what you said about I had really good male mentors, I think is, I don't know if that's the word you use,
Mhm.
but they're so important as we are to them, they are to us. And sometimes people ask me when they're talking about Born to Rise, is it just for women? And I said, absolutely not. Like, it's women's stories, but men need to hear them. They need to know what we're going through, just like we need to know what they're going through. They've just had a louder voice, so we've been more informed about what they go through. And so, I love that you mentioned that, because I don't want to disregard or put them down in any way. And I think you're a great example of how women can step in and find hopefully we get more men like that who are willing to rise up and help others rise up, just like we women tend to do for one another. So I love that story.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Thank
that's a great lead in, what does it mean to rise, right? For you, but also for the world.
Yeah, and I think that it's a great question because, for me, it's been an evolution, right? My change and start of this transformation started about five years ago when I lost that business. I didn't. I had defined myself by being a single mother and running this business, and now I don't have the business. I'm now, I'm still a single mother, which is great. And I said, okay, I'm going to get a job because that's security. And I'm going to pour my life into getting my son through the next 5 years, through graduating high school. And that's it. And I thought, and in the meantime, I worked on my house but then I was really restless, right? And people kept saying, you're going to let that business failure define you. And I said, no, I just don't know what else to do. I don't know who I am. And and so there was this sort of evolution of figuring out what that is and what are those next steps. And I've really been sort of trial and erroring. And Elevate was a great example of that, right? I knew that to be successful, we have to work on ourselves. We have to build our own foundation. And you and I have had this conversation before, and it's sort of the premise of my story is that without that foundation, we're really building things on a house of cards. And so, when we think of it as waves on a beach, then every time a wave comes in and crashes on us, it knocks us out, and it takes a long time to get back up and struggle. Where if we have this really strong foundation, those waves can come and go and kind of come through us. And so for me, learning how to rise and who are the people that can help me, being that I've been in business for myself and I went through all of these difficult things, I really didn't ask for help. I grew up in a family that you could not do that. You couldn't talk about your feelings. You couldn't be struggling. And so I had this sort of mask of I had it all together and I was going to figure it out and I was going to, push through it. A lot of masculine energy because I'm in a masculine world and I know how to do it, but burnout, feeling unfulfilled, restless, anxious, frustrated, angry, sad, all those really strong emotions. And so realizing at the start of the summer when I was, falling in this hole again of burnout, something's got to change. And it was so intense for me because I had to go back and heal a lot of those childhood trauma wounds and really figure out who I am aside from my job, aside from where I show up in this world as a mother, all these things. Who am I, Michelle? And how do I build that foundation? And how do I make it so that it's unshakable, unbreakable, so that I can continue to do the work that I know that I'm called to do in this world, even if I don't really know what that is right at the moment.
I,
I can
I
feel
love
it.
I love all of that, and I think what we start to realize is that we do have this foundation of some kind that hopefully, like as we get older and wiser, we find that balance between the masculine and feminine, but that the feminine needs to come in to see and be compassionate for the self, right? The part of us that needs to be solid and grounded and cared for. And that's not to say we're going to wobble or get that wave might, shake us up a little bit, but it's that resiliency that I hear from you where we keep returning to discover more and discover more. And I know there's been a lot of movies even about men wearing masks and having to uphold exactly what you're saying. And it's almost like if we can teach them what we're doing, they might even be a little happier too. So I'm loving this dance between the masculine and feminine that you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it really, for me, it came to fruition with owning my own erecting company, right? I had, again, the majority of the people that I was hiring were men. I had a sprinkling of a few women. And then but it worked, right? When I brought in that feminine energy of let's be a team, let's be collaborative, let's talk about vulnerability, let's press pause when people are upset and figure out what's going on. I mean, it was hysterical. I operated out of the Boston, Massachusetts area, and we used to get we were told that, oh, we're the touchy feely erecting company, right? Because we
And
didn't
that
approach
word, I'm
it.
sorry, it keeps sounding so it's the perfect name.
It's the perfect name, right?
Yeah.
And so, but it worked, right? We got contracts. We did the job really well. People loved working for us because we said what we did what we said we were going to do, and
Love
we
that.
did it because we wanted to be part of the team. We wanted people to be excited about the work that we were doing because it mattered. And I was able to, when I went to the next place to help, run and oversee this shop of 30 men, I was like, you know what? It worked. It worked for Lemoy. It's going to work here too. And so as we went through and got all these men to talk about what's your strengths, what are you having a problem with, what do we need to talk about, having those difficult conversations, recognizing when we need some time off because we're burnt out, really caring about not just being a silo and what is the work that we're working on, but how is what we're doing affecting the person before us, the person after us, right? All these things. And when I left, and I had given my notice, one of the lead foremen, I'll never forget it. He said to me, we were walking out, and he said, I didn't believe in your magic when you started here. But he said, you made this a better place to work. And for me, that was all I ever wanted. I wanted people to get excited about going to work. I wanted people to get excited about being a part of it. And I think when we can show men that it can be that way, then it makes it becomes transformational, and people really buy into the bigger vision of this can be really great.
I love that so much. I mean, that's just a perfect, example of how working together can make everybody rise. I love that. Um, so Michelle, obviously you're down for sharing this story. Why do you think it's so important to share, this story, other stories? How have you seen that impact your life?
Yeah, they're not easy stories, right? My first couple stories I've written was about losing the business and my divorce, and then my second story, which I worked with you to craft a year ago, was sort of similar. Like I knew there was something changing within me that needed to be addressed, and it was sort of coming to light and being this beacon for others. And we don't always choose that, right? It could be so much easier to be behind that mask, right, and hiding but that's not what we're here for. And I believe the universe will nudge us, if not push us, to make sure we get out of our own way. And so at the beginning of this summer, why I think my story is so important is because it really gets to the heart of mental health, and how when we don't take care of our mental health, it can be very scary. And who can we reach out to lean on to help us put the pieces back together again? And that's kind of scary, right? To sort of show that vulnerability when I'm very high functioning, I'll say successful to some degree, and really a very giving individual, and yet I could barely make it through the day some days. And that was scary for me, because I didn't know what was happening, and I didn't understand why it was happening, and I really didn't know how many people I could share that with that would be able to hold space for me. And I think that when we share those stories, someone else, my hope is always that I've gone through this so that someone else can relate, and someone else can know that it doesn't have to be the end. It doesn't have to be a sentence. And we can heal. We can heal ourselves. We can heal with the help of others. And once we're on the other side, it's pretty amazing. We just can't see it in those darkest of nights.
I know it. I know it. And it is, I love the point that you made about how you've told various stories along the way, because there isn't always just one story. And I think a lot of times when I invite people to share a story at an event, they're like, I don't know what my story is, but we have many. And it's just sometimes being prompted to talk about a career story, a child story, a story about your mother, a story about, we all have stories. And basically those are experiences we've had and how we've interacted with those circumstances or events, right? And that's really becomes that soul piece and that development. So I've loved hearing all the ideations of all of your stories, and I'm sure there's much more to come for you. You're an incredibly, like you said, you're a very capable and successful woman. So thank you for modeling what is possible. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
We'll talk to you again soon, I'm sure. And please, everybody, read her chapter and more information below about Michelle. Take care.